Hey guys, what's up? TheAirsoftTech here. So we talk a lot on this channel about internal upgrades as far as mechanical upgrades are concerned, such as gears, pistons, motors, barrels, hop-up units, etc. But we don't talk a whole lot about the electrical side of airsoft, besides motors that is. As far as Mosfets are concerned, we don't talk a ton about those on this channel. So today I'm going to be reviewing a 3034 Mosfet by PNW Aerodynamics, the hulkfet. Now, a lot of people say that Mosfets aren't a necessity, and while that is true, Mosfets are not a necessity on like an 11 volt LiPo or even a 14.8 volt LiPo. They may not be necessary to get the gun to function, but they make the gun function much more healthy. So the things you're looking at with a Mosfet is you're looking at advantages such as better trigger response, higher rate of fire, your trigger contacts won't burn out, etc. So that's why I kind of consider them a necessity when doing a high performance build. All my guns that run 11 volt LiPos have a Mosfet inside of them, except one, and today I'm going to install this Mosfet by PNW Aerodynamics into it. So when you get the Mosfet in the mail from PNW Aerodynamics, you get it in this cool little static bag, and you get a bunch of little parts in it as well. So we're going to take it apart, look at all the parts that we get, and we're going to go from there. So like I stated, this Mosfet is a 3034 Mosfet, which means that it's a very, very basic Mosfet, but it does a good job. It can hold up to, I think the rating on these Mosfets is somewhere around 22 volts, but no airsoft motor can actually realistically run that. So you don't need to go that high, it's just saying that it can go that high, and that's how strong or high of a voltage it can take before shorting out and breaking and whatnot. So we're going to be reviewing this Mosfet for what it claims to be, not for something that it doesn't claim to be. So for example, this is just a basic Mosfet. All it's supposed to do is to shield your contacts, number one. Number two, it will, in process of doing that, it takes the majority of that electrical current and shoves it into the motor as opposed to the trigger contacts. That's kind of what Mosfets do. Because when you run a big 11 volt battery, what happens is all that current goes through your trigger contacts, which causes sparking, and the sparking and arcing causes carbon to build up on the trigger trolley and the trigger prongs and the trigger tabs in there. I'm losing track of the vernacular here, but those tabs in there will build up a black soot on them, and that's carbon buildup. And when you build up too much of that, you can either burn up your contacts, or you won't have electrical connection there anymore. So when you pull the trigger, your gun will stop working. The electrical current or electrical circuit will not be completed every time you pull the trigger. So to avoid this, or to fix this issue, what Mosfets do is they have a signal wire running from the Mosfet, which connects to the battery, to the trigger contacts. And this allows only a minimal amount of electricity to go to the contacts to turn the system on, hence why it's a signal setup or a gate setup like that. And the rest of that electricity goes directly to the motor. And so this actually increases your trigger response and your rate of fire in turn. So that's the other things that this Mosfet does. The Mosfet claims that it protects your trigger contacts, it'll therefore increase your rate of fire and your trigger response and whatnot. And it also claims that this is waterproof, which is really interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have time today to actually fully test that, but I will absolutely test that in the future. Alright, so back in the day, for me that is 5 or 6 years ago when I first got into teching, when I bought Mosfets for the builds that I did for customers, it never came with any of these things right here. None of this nice stuff or extra stuff that Mosfets come with nowadays. But PNW, they're including much more other stuff than what used to come with Mosfets back in the day. So you get a DIN plug, which is really awesome because who doesn't love getting a DIN plug? This is for the Mosfet to the battery. And then you get a bunch of heat shrink, which who doesn't love as well. And then you get this large piece of heat shrink right here, which is for putting over the DIN plug. Once you solder your wires to these tabs in here, and then put heat shrink on the tabs, and then you can put this big one on it, which will keep the whole setup more secure actually. Which is kind of cool. It's a nice inclusion, not necessary, but a nice inclusion. And then you get 3 motor connectors here. Now you might be wondering, why do you get 3? You only need 2. You're right, you really only need 2. But the 3 is for, I guess, just in case you mess up or just in case one of them breaks, which these things break quite often actually. So it's good to see that he's included 3 as opposed to just 2, or none actually. It's a really nice gesture. And then of course you get your Mosfet with your different links and wires on it. You also get this instruction manual right here. It's very, very simple. All it has to do is tell you how to install it and what's going on. It includes a nice diagram and it tells you how much wire you're getting for each one. So wire length to motor is 18 inches, wire length to battery is 12 inches, your signal wire length is 18 inches, and your positive wire length is 30 inches. So you get quite a bit of positive wire right there. And then of course you can request a Dean, Mini Tamiya, or XT60. XT60s are these things right here. They're a little bit larger than Dean plugs, but they do just the same thing. I think there's some article online that you can read where XT60s are technically the more efficient, but it's negligible nearly, so there's no point. I just like Deans a lot more because they're smaller and they're easier to work with. But yeah, you get a nice little diagram right here, and you get instructions right here. So another claim with this MOSFET is that it is waterproof. Now, this MOSFET, it's called the hulkfet. You may notice it looks vaguely reminiscent of the NukeFet back in the day, or the NukeFet that's still made today. I just haven't had one in a long time. But this MOSFET claims to be waterproof. Now, if you actually want to kind of just physically check it out, you can see that there is, see if I can get that to focus, there is some sort of glue or epoxy or something in there to waterproof it. Same thing on the other side, which is really cool. I'm not exactly sure why it would need to be waterproof. Some people get their guns wet, and when you get your guns wet, they can short out. Sure, that is a possibility. But unless you're totally submerging your gun, you're probably not gonna need the waterproof feature. But it's a cool feature. I won't be able to test it out today, but I will definitely test it out someday in the near future. Speaking of this MOSFET being waterproof, I would like to state right now that I'm not testing this MOSFET to compare it to, say, a Spectre FET or a Chimera MOSFET. I'm testing this MOSFET to see if it can live up to its claims. You know, being waterproof, protecting your trigger contacts, supposedly increasing rate of fire, trigger response, and all that stuff, and efficiency. I'm testing it for what it claims to be and what it comes with, not for comparing it to some, you know, alpha MOSFET like the Spectre or the Chimera. If I were to do that, it'd be kind of like comparing a Honda Civic to a Ferrari. There's really not a comparison. I mean, sure, one car is better than the other one, but you're setting a goal at that point, and the goal would be to see which car is better in a certain regard. Of course, the Spectre MOSFET is better than the hulkfet here, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to review a MOSFET that people want to protect their trigger contacts, and that's it. The Honda Civic that you'd be comparing to the Ferrari gets you from point A to point B, gets you from work to home and back and forth, and keeps you and your family safe. The Ferrari just goes faster and is nicer. Just like the Spectre FET, it's nicer. It comes with greater features. But that's not what we're testing here. We're testing what this MOSFET, the hulkfet, claims it can do. Alrighty, so now that that's out of the way, I'm going to install the hulkfet into my actually Classic Army G3. I've needed a MOSFET in this gun for a very long time, and it's one of my only guns that doesn't have a MOSFET. So I'm going to take this MOSFET, put it into my G3, and see how it goes. Alright, a quick note, this isn't supposed to be an installation guide video for this MOSFET, it's just supposed to be a review, and that's what we're doing. So the MOSFET's already installed. I have the MOSFET right here, the Dean plug and the heat shrink around it, sealed up and nice to go. I measured everything out, cut everything up as it should go, and tested the gun, and it fires just fine. The trigger response is snappier, the rate of fire is slightly better, and there is no arcing. Use as much as the heat shrink as you can. Try to cover up all your leads, especially on the trigger contacts. Make sure that you use the heat shrink on it to cover the exposed ends up, or as much of the exposed end up as you can, and you should be good to go. Also, measure, absolutely measure and double check before you cut, because you want your MOSFET to be clean from point A to point B, from point A to point C. You want the whole thing to be clean. You don't want solder joints here and there, you don't want exposed ends. Do it clean. Alright, so I've installed the hulkfet into my G3. It functions flawlessly. I measured all the wire, like I said, and put the MOSFET about right here in the stock, somewhere in there. And my Dean plug comes out like a pretty good distance. So that's all pretty good. But anyway, this was a video about the review of the hulkfet, and the hulkfet's a fantastic MOSFET. It works very, very well. I've actually had another MOSFET by the same people who make this MOSFET, PNW Aerodynamics. I've had that MOSFET in my G36 for a long time now. It was one of his very first MOSFETs. It didn't come with a TVS diode like this one did, so the guy wanted to send me another one to make a video on, and to make that the review video for his MOSFET presentation video. Another YouTuber, AST Kilo 23, I know him on Facebook and all this stuff, I've talked to him before. He made a video on this MOSFET as well. He got the drop-in unit and the soldering-in unit. I just got the soldering-in unit because it's what I do. I've soldered in MOSFETs for 6 years, and I can do them flawlessly now. And so I've had a lot of experience there. But this MOSFET's a fantastic MOSFET, does exactly what it's supposed to. It takes the trigger contacts, or it prevents the arcing in the trigger contacts by putting all that electricity and all that amperage into the motor like it should, increasing rate of fire, increasing efficiency, and increasing trigger response and all that glorious stuff, all while doing what exactly it's supposed to do. Like I said, you can't take this MOSFET and compare it to like a SpectraFET, because a SpectraFET's its own class of MOSFETs. It'd be stupid to compare the two. But this MOSFET is a MOSFET that's meant to do one thing, and it does that one thing incredibly well at a really good price too. So I highly recommend these MOSFETs. Alright, so to finish off, I'm going to tell you exactly everything about the FET, all the perks about it, just to round up at the end of the video. So the greatest thing about the MOSFET is it's 3034 base, which is what you need, a baseline MOSFET to protect your trigger contacts up to around 22 volts or an 18.5 volt LiPo battery, which you don't need, by the way, so you can run a 14 out of these MOSFETs just great. TVS diode protected, it's just physically stronger, and it's waterproof supposedly. That's what the claim is, and I've never heard anybody dispute that claim. I'm going to test it out by submerging that portion of the gun where the MOSFET is to see if it actually operates when it's submerged and when it's underwater, testing the waterproofness of it. Has a warranty on it. I believe the warranty is 1 year, which is a fantastic warranty. I don't know of, like SpectraFETs and BTC Chimeras, you can get warranties, like lifetime warranties on those for the most part. But I've never heard of a 3034 MOSFET that was lifetime, or not lifetime, but 1 year. That's pretty good, I think. But the MOSFET comes with everything you need. It comes with the heat shrink, it comes with the DIN plug, it comes with the MOSFET itself, it comes with tons of wire. It's a fantastic FET. You can buy the drop-in unit, or you can buy the solder-in unit. I prefer the solder-in unit because I've been doing this for years. So if you're a tech who needs to have a bunch of MOSFETs to work with, to install in say rental guns or to install in customer guns, then this is the MOSFET you want. But if you're a guy who just wants to put in a MOSFET in your gun, I would get the drop-in unit, because soldering can be a pain if you have no clue what you're doing. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video review of the hulkfet by PNW Aerodynamics. I enjoyed making it, I enjoyed showing it off, and I enjoyed installing it into my classic Army G3. I'll have to make a video showing off this gun and doing a test firing and FPS test and a takedown of everything on the inside. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video, whatever the heck I do, and stay tuned, techs.